You might remember we did a video asking whether you're a radiomere or a luminor Panerai person. I think after some consideration, I'm a submersible guy. Today we are looking at the PAM 01068, which is going to mean a lot to Panerai fans because everything's PAM something. And this one is called the Submersible Blu Notte. Now, Blu Notte, again, thank you Google Translate, is blue night. And we're getting that effect with this really, I would say it's a metallic, galvanic style of sunray dial. We really have this quite mysterious blue dial that again is a bit of a surprise to old school Panerai fans who remember the tool watches, the luminors and the radiomeres from days of old that really had that desaturated black dial pretty standard. Of course that's migrated to lots of colors, but now we really do have these kind of lush, slightly more I would say dressy variants of dial, and this one really does evoke sort of a midnight blue. It's true to its name. Now, the submersible watch that I'm looking at here, the first impressions I got straight away are how good are submersible watches in terms of their design. They're somewhere between the really quite faithful design style of the luminor and radiomere, and they bring elements of both, but particularly the luminor into the equation, which is this very noticeable crown guard. And look, I describe Panerai as the itch that you can never quite scratch, because this is a design that you can have in your collection and feel that it completes a collection, and then there are moments where you think, I can do without this. Or there are moments where you think, this is not ergonomic enough for me, this is too much heft on the wrist. And then as soon as it's gone, you need one back again. And that's because really there's something singular about the Panerai design across all three pillars that is almost impossible, well, it is impossible to replace. Now let's talk about that luminor crown guard, because for the uninitiated, this is the coolest design trick ever, and it's what made these tool watches back in their origin as watches for the Italian frogmen so functionally successful. And that is that they had this crown guard that has a little lever that you pull. When you release that, you're then able to manipulate the crown. So you're able to change the time, you're able to wind the watch if you want to, like I just did to get the small seconds at 9 going. And that is the explanation about the really obvious design element of this watch. Going into some details about this, the thing that really jumped out at me straight away is this bracelet, because Panerai on bracelet, again, this is a relatively new concept. There have been Panerai bracelets over the years, but the most successful models, the most iconic models have been on leather, have been on rubber, have not been on steel bracelet. Again, that's in my opinion. I know some people have worn Panerais on steel bracelets for years. I have not. I don't associate it with the brand. This is a really interesting bracelet. So looking at it in detail, we have this interleaved bracelet, which has like a semicircle piece that intersects the polished center link and then connects to a second link. So you have quite a complex bracelet construction, and you do have these contrasting finishes of a very gently, there isn't a strong scratch to the satinage, but we do have a satin brushed piece, and then we have this polished center link, which I wouldn't say is mirror polished. You have to look closely. It's just more polished than the other components. So the bracelet itself, how does it feel on the wrist? It feels very comfortable. It's actually quite a slim bracelet in terms of the bracelet pieces are quite slim compared to the heft of the case. Now let's get to the case, because we do have this really nice satin brushed case, which has, if you look at the case construction, really quite an ergonomic and rounded feel to it. So again, Panerai, the iconic Panerais, they're blocky, they're masculine, they're certainly very heavy on the wrist in terms of the, that luxurious quality feel to them. But the Submersible has these now considered rounded edges, including the case as it connects to the lugs has these rounded shoulders. Again, there's not a sharp angle in sight on this watch. Now the lug construction is quite interesting because it protrudes from the case almost as a separate component. It is a mono construction, so the lugs are actually attached to the case, but again, it almost appears that the lugs are separate to the case. Now the bezel, another thing I love about the Submersible is its utilitarian tone. It's still, despite being, again, more rounded and more ergonomic, it still has this very useful utilitarian look to it. And again, you know that this is going to wear pretty tough. We have a matte ceramic bezel with steel inlay. Now what's really interesting about this that I'm noticing now is that the 15-minute track, which is oh so useful to the diver, because that indicates, you know, as you, oh, that's a really nice bezel turn, by the way. That's interesting. You're getting a second click as you turn it. It's got quite a, wow, okay, momentarily distracted. But as you turn the bezel to set your dive time, you're going to look down and see that the 15 minutes, the all-important 15 minutes of oxygen time are indicated by very fine steel inlays for each minute. So again, that's a nice dressy touch for a watch that otherwise looks really tough. So talking about the size, we have a 42mm watch, which for a Panerai for me is perfect. I've had a 44mm Panerai several times and it's ended up being something I've been too conscious of when I'm wearing. It's very large. Again, I'm not the world's biggest alpha male, so if that's something that appeals to you, that's completely cool. For me, 42mm is getting closer to that real Goldilocks zone of a watch that you can wear without it wearing you. So I'm all for the 42mm. So this watch is 51.4mm lug to lug. Now, how does that look? Have a close look at my wrist. The reason I feel this is reasonable is because the lugs they don't lift the watch off the wrist. They're quite flat on the wrist. And for me, at 7 inches, I don't feel that this is out of the Goldilocks realm entirely. It feels flat on the wrist. And the reason for that, and not nuggety on the wrist, is partly this case construction, which has this really nice ergonomic side profile to the case, but also the height of the case. This is only 13.3mm high, which is, for example, a millimeter or so thinner than my Zenith Chronomaster Sport chronograph. So interesting how the numbers can deceive, because while the lug to lug is larger than usual and the height is slimmer, so it ends up being really, as you can see, a comfortable wear on the wrist. And when you add in the equation that the weight of this watch is 174 grams, then you're getting the picture that it's a very comfortable weight. Now, to put that in context, a Rolex GMT Master 2 is 180 odd grams. So you're getting that sense of luxurious heft without it being this Panerai missile on the wrist. This is a legitimate dive watch. We have 300 meters of water resistance. In terms of the movement, it is concealed behind a closed case back, and we have the Panerai P900 caliber. And in terms of power reserve, we have 72 hours, 3 days of power reserve, which passes the Friday to Monday test, though I doubt you'd be taking it off for the weekend. This to me looks more like a watch that you would wear on your weekend adventures. However, again, probably one of the real benefits of this bracelet is that you would consider wearing this with a suit. And I'm wearing a navy shirt, navy pants, and a pair of boots. And really, as soon as I put it on, I was like, damn, that Panerai itch is back. It's a new way to consider the brand on bracelet. And it's a new way to interact with the dial with this really lovely metallic sunray. And look, I'm pretty smitten. And if you don't mind, I'm just gonna stare at it lovingly for a while. And in one final nod to daily wear, we have a date at 3, which fits in quite symmetrically given that we have these small seconds at 9. So there you have it. We have a Panerai dive watch that is really meeting you in the middle. It has the useful functions of date. It has a small seconds there at 9. It has a really lovely galvanic sunray blue dial, and it has this complex, interesting, and unique bracelet. Like a lot of bracelets effectively look the same. They look a lot like popular bracelets by Rolex, the Oyster bracelet. They look like sometimes the Nautilus bracelet with this polished center link rounded. This bracelet doesn't look like either of those. It's really different. And again, you're getting a different tonality out of the bracelet as you look at it, with that polished center link being a much brighter stainless steel and the outer links being brushed to almost a gray. So you're getting a nice, almost bi-color effect from the bracelet. Lots of things to look at with this watch. Definitely worth investigating if you're a Panerai fan, or if, like me, you can never quite get over what this brand presents. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments. Again, I asked the question, Luminor, Radiomir, we've done that video before. I'm adding Submersible to the mix because I really think after all this consideration, I'm kind of a Submersible guy. See you soon. Thanks for watching Time+Tide.